I cleared one of the most difficult raids in Final Fantasy XIV in 7 days, a raid that takes weeks or months to complete. To make it even more difficult, I didn't have a dedicated party and would be relying on the randomness of Party Finder. What's more, I needed to complete this challenge before the release of the new expansion, Dawn Trail. I wasn't fully prepared for how difficult and psychologically taxing this challenge would be. This is my story. This is how I cleared the Epic of Alexander in 7 days. Final Fantasy XIV has 3 tiers of raids: Normal, Savage, and Ultimates. The Epic of Alexander, or T, belongs to the last category, Ultimates. Ultimates are the hardest raids in the entire game, generally requiring weeks, if not months, to clear. They are a test of your mental fortitude, physical endurance, and skill.
Nice LB, nice LB! Yes, sir! You guys have no idea how tiring it is, man. 11 days, man. All I do is I wake up, I raid, I brush my teeth, I go to bed, I wake up, and then I raid.
They also remain difficult over time, with only a small percentage of the player base having cleared T since its release in 2019. This raid is structured into 4 phases, each with a different boss. Some of these are more challenging than others and can constitute significant barriers. Many players use a playbook of universal strategies for this raid, in this case, Old Bin raid strats. Normally, 8 players would create a group and practice together to make progress in the fight, progging until they clear. The alternative, Party Finder, matches you with random players. It is treated with some disdain by those who run difficult content like Ultimates due to the unpredictability of the team you'll get. With that said, I would have just over 3 weeks to complete the Epic of Alexander. The deadline was imposed by the release of the newest expansion, Dawn Trail, bringing with it a new Savage raid, which would require weeks of preparation. Even worse, the servers would go down for maintenance in preparation for the release, giving me a hard cutoff. So, I needed to complete one of the hardest raids in Final Fantasy XIV before Dawn Trail released, in Party Finder with random players. Today was the first day of this challenge. I knew it would take a while to gather players, and after an hour we finally had our first group. I was ready to jump in and get some experience with the first boss of the raid, Living Liquid. I was ready to make the first pull of this challenge, but shortly after, things began to go downhill pretty quickly. Normally, you were supposed to give a countdown timer before you pull so that the party can give buffs and prepare their abilities, but I completely forgot, and without thinking, I just went in. Not to mention, charging the boss like this just makes it harder for you to reposition him for the party. I began to completely stumble all over the place. A few pulls in, it was clear that I was the problem, and it didn't take long for all of it to fall apart. There is another factor that I need to mention. I had just returned to Final Fantasy XIV after a 2-year hiatus, and the last time I raided an Ultimate was a long time ago. Things were not off to a great start. I felt more than embarrassed. I looked like a total idiot. Was I too rusty? Did I underestimate this challenge? It didn't matter. I needed to come back from this mentally.
Lock it in, Chad. You got this.
I couldn't let this challenge die before it began. It would be another hour before we filled the party, but this time I was ready. My job as the main tank is primarily to position the boss, Living Liquid, and bait the Living Hand. After that, I just have to survive the Protean waves. And aside from a few tired mistakes, I was starting to get it right consistently. I was starting to get back into the rhythm of raiding, and my confidence was returning.
Prog, baby. We're in it, dude.
We were beginning to make progress slowly and steadily. Another attempt, and we were finally pushing past the Jagged Doll phase. After 5 hours of waiting and dozens of prog attempts, I was ready to call it for the day.
But that's okay. That was really good prog. That was like fantastic prog. I will absolutely take that.
All of the skills I learned raiding in Party Finder years ago were rushing back to me. I focused only on what I could control, myself, and I was seeing the improvements.
That's all that I can do. I did my part correctly, therefore I'm moving on to Limit Cut tomorrow.
But my optimism wouldn't last for long. On day 2, I really wanted to focus. I decided to not stream my attempts, but instead go under and put the blinders on. While I was waiting in queue, I was using the time I had to my advantage. I had begun to use the T Solo Sim, which would be an instrumental tool that would help me improve rapidly. The T Solo Sim helps you practice specific mechanics without the need for a full party. All of the mechanics that you can practice were further than I currently was in my progression, except for one. Meet one of the biggest walls for raiders in T, Limit Cut. My goal from the previous day was to get to Limit Cut by day 2. and I was practicing heavily for it. Limit Cut is considered to be the first real wall of the raid, as it requires near-perfect synchronization of all players. A few hours in, I had a few groups of unsuccessful prog, until finally, something began to happen. Near the very end of the day, another prog point was made. Although it was completely messy, I had seen the end of Limit Cut. During Limit Cut, each player will be given a random number from 1 to 8 at the beginning of the mechanic. This number will dictate which direction they go into. The most common strat used here is called 1-2-5-6. That means that 1-2-5-6 will go north, while 3-4-7-8 will go south. Large AoEs will begin hitting the arena that are always parallel and rotating in a clockwise direction. Cruise Chaser will then pop in and slice in the direction that the odd number players are facing, while dashing toward the even number players immediately after. This is a complicated dance, and requires party synchronization in order to get past it. Though it was an absolute mess, and I got my first attempt completely wrong, we were so close to the next phase of the fight, Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser. The group I was with began to run out of steam, and that was that. It was time to call it a day, for our next biggest challenge that would test my mettle was yet to come. On day 3, I decided to stream my attempts again. Unfortunately, I would be met with probably the biggest test of my sanity yet, the wait times. I sat around on stream for about an hour and 45 minutes, waiting for my party to fill, but it never did. I did everything that I could to keep myself occupied.
Great. Oh,
but nothing was working.
okay, I have a thought experiment, chat. What if we tried T next expansion? What if we just, would there be more players, you think? Like, is everyone just generally not here? Did I fail the challenge? Did I not do it?
Eventually, I couldn't wait any longer.
I think I'm gonna call stream. I'm not feeling it. This is pain. This is absolute, unfathomable pain.
I took a break for an hour or so and tried again offline. My mental state was wearing down. I had almost cleared the first phase of the fight, but I had so much more to go. It was beginning to sink in just how difficult this challenge was going to be. One fact became clear to me as I was waiting in Party Finder for a third day. There was really no one left.
Every single expansion, at the very last patch, people don't give a shit anymore. This happens every expansion. This happened in Realm Reborn, happened in Heaven's Ward, happened in Stormblood, happened in Endwalker, or Shadowbringers, happened in Endwalker.
So it's not surprising that I was one of the only ones left trying to clear an old raid. I noticed that other players were feeling the pressure too. They had likely been sitting in queue for hours as well. In my disillusioned state, I started to wonder, were they right? Were people avoiding me?
Is it me? Did I do this? Did I do something? I'm like, oh my god, did I do something? Did I piss off everyone? Or is it slow?
I'm gonna be real, I don't think it's you. You need to stop thinking. That's a really unhealthy thought.
I'm going crazy. I literally... Wait, I couldn't have... Well, okay. It's Jover, dude. It's... No, okay.
It might not be Jover. Just chill out.
Finally, our party had filled. I had waited a total of 4.5 hours all day just to have one attempt at progression. Needless to say, I was a little more than done at this point.
Yeah, it's the last patch of the expansion. People are done. They don't care anymore, and it is what it is.
And then, my patience finally paid off. I got lucky, incredibly lucky. Very early on in this party's attempts, we were able to get past Limit Cut. This was incredible progress. It was near perfect. The party that joined me was able to progress very quickly until finally I reached what I consider to be the hardest part of the raid, Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser. The run was going extremely well so far considering this was Party Finder and my first time seeing this phase. Unfortunately, it would fall apart seconds later. Regardless, this was a phenomenal push that put me a considerable distance ahead in overall progression.
Oh my god, that's actually the furthest I've ever been, Mogi. That's actually really good.
We had just accomplished something amazing, which was getting about halfway through the Nisi mechanic, which myself and many others considered to be the hardest part of this raid. During the Nisi phase, either tanks and healers or DPS will be assigned to Nisi. The tanks and healers stay in their positions while the DPS move to them to either acquire or share the Nisi before its timer runs out. At the end of the phase, Brute Justice casts Gavel, and players will line up in the order blue, purple, orange, and green. This allows players to be positioned safely and also take a Nisi if needed. However, there are two failure conditions for Nisi which cause the entire raid to wipe. The first happens if two players with mismatched colored Nisis touch. The second happens when there are fewer than 8 active Nisis when Brute Justice casts Gavel at the end of the phase. On top of that, there are many other mechanics happening at the same time, which keeps every player busy. But in a single pull, we had managed to get about halfway through the mechanic just after the second pass. I would make a few more attempts after this point, but eventually it was time to call it. After raiding and waiting for nearly 8 hours, I was exhausted, but the next morning would bring unexpected news that would complicate the timeline of this challenge.
So please be advised, right before the early access, we will require a 48-hour maintenance.
During the 82nd Final Fantasy XIV live letter, a fireside chat from the developers of the game to the players, they had announced that the new expansion would receive a 48-hour update period. This was catastrophic news. Before an expansion, the servers are normally taken offline for 24 hours, but if they're being taken offline for 48 hours, that would mean I would have one less day to complete this challenge. Even losing just one day worth of progression could be make or break. If Nisi was truly the wall for this raid, then I would need to climb that wall for good. I just needed to push myself further than what I currently was. And so I did.
Oh, they ran past me. That's unlucky.
No matter how many times I tried that day, Nisi was just too difficult to overcome. At the end of it all, I was starting to crack. But after 8.5 hours with no progress, something became clear. This might be as far as I can go. With less players to raid with, the challenge of Nisi itself, and the new impending deadline, I began to have thoughts about quitting here. I would log off that night feeling defeated, not knowing what tomorrow would hold, but what happened was something I definitely did not expect. I started the day early as usual, hoping to get as many hours of prog in as I could. About an hour in, she appeared. Celeste was a veteran who cleared T before and was helping her friend get the clear. She had agreed to help me too, knowing that I was trying to push as far as I could. Once we filled our party, we were stuck on Nisi for a couple of hours until finally, it happened. After about 3.5 hours of progging and multiple party disbands, we did it. Nisi was down. This was incredible. I had finally found a party that could overcome the biggest wall in this fight. Then it hit me. I hadn't done the last phase of Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser before, but I knew it in theory. My adrenaline tripped off hard. Everything began to happen so quickly and suddenly he was there, Alexander Prime. We had finally broken the barrier and moved to the next phase of the fight. Immediately, the time stop mechanic happened. I panicked. For a second, I completely forgot what I was even doing. But then, I remembered the simulations. I had the aggravated assault debuff, which means I need to stand next to Brute Justice. Our mechanics resolved and Alex Prime appeared. After handling the first Alex Prime interaction, it was time for the Inception formation. This was the first time seeing Inception formation in the live game. I didn't expect to survive, but that's okay. I had come so far. My hands were shaking, but I had steeled my mind for this moment. I had gotten to my position and it was almost perfect on my first try. That was a huge win for me. In just a single swoop, we had made a major advancement in progression. All of the simulations I had done had helped me prepare for this. The party would disband shortly after that, and some adjustments were made. Celeste had agreed to be my co-tank, and we would wait a little bit longer from here. Another group was formed, and we were able to get back to Inception formation. I found my position, and this time it was successful. Things began to fall apart, but the healers were able to recover us. We had barely scraped by in order to see the next final wall of this fight, Wormhole. Without any time to breathe, we got back up. I had prepared for this mechanic for hours on end in the simulator. If I could do this one mechanic, I would have overcome the 2 hardest challenges this raid has to offer. And I completely botched it. Nerves had overtaken me and I was standing in the wrong spot and the raid wiped. Regardless, I had seen Wormhole for the first time and I could do it again. Wormhole is the second major challenge that raiders must overcome. Players will be assigned a random number from 1 to 8. Odd number players will head east and even numbered players will head west. Then Alexander will cast Void of Repentance, creating the wormholes. Players must soak the wormholes in a specific order to clear the mechanic. If you do not soak the wormholes or if they are done out of order, the raid will wipe. Next, chakrams will appear on cardinal directions, which will dash across the arena. Brute Justice will jump to whoever is opposite him and cast Apocalyptic Ray. Cruise Chaser will begin using the same mechanics from Limit Cut earlier in the raid. He will cleave on the odd number players and dash towards the even ones. Finally, Alexander Prime will cast Sacrament. When you put all of these mechanics together, the margin of error is razor thin. Many raiding groups fell apart here whenever this raid was current content in 2019. We got back to Wormhole again quickly, but this time I was ready. I got into position, and that was it. I had done my part correctly. To me, this was a win. I had successfully done Wormhole in the live game, and that is all that mattered to me. The party would fall apart shortly after, but that was fine. I had done all that I could do, focus on myself and my individual progress. Not long after, we managed to actually clear Wormhole. I couldn't believe what was happening. We reached yet another progression point. We had gotten to the Mega Holy Spam that Alexander casts. This is an intense party mitigation phase that requires tons of resources to survive. The party was on the back foot, but the healers burned every resource in order to get us further just to see the mechanic and get critical information of what comes next. We weren't going to survive, but we needed this practice, and practice is what we got. We pushed and pushed, but it was an uphill battle we would eventually lose. Perfect Alexander, the last phase of the fight, was so close. We just had to make it past the last Alexander Prime mechanic, the heal and DPS check. The party, likely exhausted by this point, would fall apart quickly after this. After 7.5 hours, it was time to call it quits.
Oh my god, this party is so wholesome. I am so lucky to actually find a group like this. Like, this is kind of insane. Normally, this is not the norm at all. I'm happy. This is great. This is genuinely a really good experience.
Celeste was there for the bulk of it. She was the most kind and patient player I have ever met in this game. If it wasn't for their guidance through this day, we would have never gotten as much progress done as we did. In a single day, I had jumped from the first mechanic of Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser all the way to the end of the Alexander Prime section. I was riding high on how far I had come in such a short time.
I got lucky. I got so lucky just to be here. It's been like almost 1 week. I started progging last week.
But another development was coming that would change the course of this challenge once again. I was winding down for the day when someone in my Discord mentioned a group called the Ulti Project. I had never heard of them before, but I decided to check it out, and what I found intrigued me. They were a group of raiders who help players specifically with ultimates like T. I looked at their requirements for help on a T clear. They required you to have seen Perfect Alexander, the final phase of the fight. If you could prove that you had gotten there, then they would provide 5 top raiders to assist you. Once you get to Perfect Alexander, you are past the most difficult parts of the raid. If I could get there, then 90% of the work would be done and I would just need the extra help to see it through to the end. But there was a problem. They only had a few open slots left due to their team taking a break before Dawntrail got here. It wasn't a guarantee that I would get a spot in time, even if I met all the requirements. There was only a solid week left of possible attempts before the server shut down for maintenance. I needed to get to Perfect Alexander and fast. But on day 6, what I didn't know is that a familiar face was about to re-enter the scene. Day 6 started just like any other day. We had almost filled the party, almost, until we got this.
He is too stoned to do this, and I respect him for at least being honest. At least he said something, dude. I do prefer when they're actually honest.
Afterwards, the party would fill once and disband shortly after.
I waited 3 hours, dude. Oh my god. Oh.
Time was running out and I was waiting longer each day to fill my party. Of the already small pool of T raiders, an even smaller portion of them had ever even seen Perfect Alexander. I could pull my weight, but I still needed 7 other people capable of clearing and they were in short supply. I realized the Ulti project might be my only chance. But to my surprise, a familiar face rode into the party. Tenno Konoco, the legend herself. She is beloved in the raiding community and helped me clear another ultimate about 2 years ago.
Double legend, baby! Let's go, dude! Double legend!
Tenno and I sat there, waiting it out. Out of the small number of players still playing, we needed the 1% of the 1% who could successfully do the final phase of the fight.
I'm gonna give it my all for this last group that we get. And then at that point, I just gotta, I'm just gonna call it for the night, because I am so tired.
This was going to be tough, maybe even impossible. Finally, after a total of 4.5 hours of waiting in Party Finder, we formed a party.
Oh my god. Chat, it's happening. It's happening.
The fight was going good. We were able to get to Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser without a single wipe on the first pull. We kept the momentum up. We were able to easily overcome Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser.
Make the pain in, bro.
The first pull would end at Wormhole, but that was okay. This group was solid.
No! No! We were so close. I did my part right, though. That was a really good first pull, though.
It was a race against the clock. I was becoming sloppy due to exhaustion.
Oh my god.
But then, in no time at all, we were able to do a successful wormhole. This was it. We had finally reached the end of Alexander Prime. It was time for the heal and DPS check. My nerves were high. Everything came down to this moment. It was done.
No shot. No shot, bro. No shot. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't. Oh my god, we did it. Lock in, lock in, lock in, lock in, lock in. Oh my god. Oh my god. Lock in, dude.
We had done it. We had finally gotten to the final phase of the fight. The moment you see the glorious transformation where Alexander becomes perfect.
Lock the in, dude. So, stillness is going to take effect. Stillness is going to take effect.
Then something dawned upon me. It was entirely possible that we could clear the raid right here and now.
Sheet over here, let's go. Go, dude.
The nerves and exhaustion took off into overdrive. I barely got into position for the beacon mechanic.
I barely saved that, bro.
And then, as soon as we got here, the stacks came out. I got into the wrong stack, and just like that, the run was over.
No! Oh. Wait, what happened? I tried to get to the healer as fast as I could. Oh, I panicked. I'm so sorry. I f***ed up.
It was on me. God. By this point, I was so tired that I couldn't see straight. It was time to call it.
Hey, we got to Perfect Alexander. Hey, we did it. The only day I can come back is going to be on Thursday. Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday. Really, we have 5 days left. I'm so tired. Amazing prog. We're gonna get this clear on Thursday. Thursday, I promise. Okay.
Except that's not what happened at all. Late the night before, I took whatever energy I had left and submitted my clip to the Ulti Project Discord. All I could do was wait at this point. I had a full day of work that Monday, and I was not feeling rested at all. I wanted to give myself a few days away from raiding to recover, but because Tenno had helped me push to see Perfect Alexander, a rapid-fire chain of events would take me off guard completely. At 7:36 p.m., I received a notification that I had been approved for a clear run and given the Discord role for vetted participants. I didn't expect to hear back from them for at least a few days. I checked out for the night. Until 9:04 p.m., I got a notification from the Raid Ready role. The Ulti Project community was putting together an impromptu group for fun. About a minute later at 9:05, I decided to check in and see how serious they were. I was curious, but not about to commit. They got back to me immediately. 7 out of 8 spots filled. They just needed one more person. I debated to myself. I didn't have a lot of time to think and decided to take a chance. Sure enough, there was one person right after me that wanted to join. I felt bad, but my instincts were telling me to jump on this. I had never raided with a group that was fully prepped before. I didn't know who they were, but I was going to do my best. After a couple of warm-up pulls, we started to get to know each other.
I tell you what. I tell you what. I'll tell you what. That boy ain't right.
Things started out pretty smoothly. You could tell everyone was locked in. We breezed past Living Liquid, Lemon Cut, and Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser. I made a goofy mistake, but easy goings, nothing too bad.
Oh my
God, I'm so sorry. We got into Alexander Prime without any real issues. We recovered and were just having a good time.
Dude, you are so good at the, like, southern foot.
I live in Texas. It's just kind of a thing. Inception was clean. Things were starting to look serious. It all came down to Wormhole. This would be the deciding factor whether or not we could continue. Perfectly executed. Now it was time for the DPS and heal check. Cruise Chaser down. Brute Justice down. Alex Prime down. This run was officially serious. I was trying to contain the nerves as much as I could. I'm not gonna lie, nerves are high. I screwed up the mechanic. Not good, but I recovered. Fate Projection Alpha was up. I just needed to see what my clone was going to do. I waited to see which combination of debuffs I received. Motion or stillness, defamation or aggravated assault. I have defamation. I needed to get away from the party before I wiped them and keep moving to avoid death myself. I was in the right spot, but I completely forgot about motion. That was twice now that stillness and motion got the better of me. Back on track. Fate Projection Beta. After this mechanic, this fight was free. I needed to see what my clone would do. I have tether. I had the position correct. Now it was time to wait. A little off course, but I got it right. And I got the bait correct. I just needed to stand there and wait for the two mechanics to resolve. I had cleared the hardest mechanic to the fight and the end was within sight. Now it was time to soak with the party and move as one. We dodged the trines easily, getting into the safe spot. Keep it together. One more pass of trines. We move as one. Time for temporal prison. We were so close, but it wouldn't even matter. 7 days worth of intense grinding. 7 days worth of an intense emotional roller coaster ended now.
Oh, shit, let's go! Oh my god! Holy dude! Oh my god. Holy shit. Bro, oh my god. Oh my god, that's crazy. Dude, I cleared this in a week. I started last week.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I started last week and I was a sitting party finder for like 8 hours a day. We had done it. We had cleared T in 7 days. I was now a perfect legend. It took 7 days, 270 total pulls, 12 hours and 52 minutes spent inside T, and 20 hours and 56 minutes waiting in Party Finder to clear this raid. I let Sauce know for someone else to take my spot for their T clear. This was by far the most intense thing I've ever done in Final Fantasy XIV, but I was thankful for the help I had along the way. GG's everyone. I'll see you guys in the Savage tier.